Dear Igor, teacher of the heart, I would like to pose a question for the next darshan, which comes from my personal experience, but might also have a connection to the topic of the connection between subject and object. Background. For the last 2 years of my practice with you, I feel a growing sensitivity, fragility and softness. I also experience moments in meditation and in life where subject and object falls together. I experience it as a difficulty, though, to connect those developments with my personal ground in relationships, family and job issues, and also worry if the disappearing of the borders between me and the world somehow falls together with my personal tendency of not taking a stand in a decided identity and flying from deepening relationships. Following and searching my dharma and position, my connection therefore concerns the connection between the widening of consciousness and the urge of finding a personal identity and security in certain form. Having had glimpses of life force, maybe the Shakti rising, I do imagine I would need a stronger connection to this power for being able to find a specific form without without doing it myself. What I experience now is more that my attempts to connect to a stand are mostly limited by my fragile and soft state. Could you please give me some leading advice on this? Classic is a classic dilemma. Dilemma of a spiritual seeker in unfoldment when we are going through the phases of that softening. Softening on the inside, on the outside. Edges are being softened. That what was maybe more of a core inside being turned into jelly-like structure instead. This softening is part and parcel and very important in the process. So first of all, I would like to say that on no account shall any insecurity, let alone fear, take over so as to somehow feel that this softening is going to be at the expense, or rather that what your spiritual unfoldment here is at the expense of you being able to take a stand in life, because that in itself is rooted in misunderstanding and misconception of how that what you have put here borders between me and the world. You see, the whole point of spiritual practice is to either take the whole world into yourself, and there are different ways of how this can be spoken and related to, right? Different ways how this can be spoken to, because it's not all homogeneous or monotonous. Spiritual unfoldment has this distinctive, whenever consciousness regains itself, one can either withdraw from the world in aloofness, as in the witnessing state, and become way too detached and uninvolved, which for some will be a great relief and a very important phase of a repose. For others, maybe this would be at the expense of missing on something. Like, imagine you are mother, father, in the very important phases of bringing up, let's say, small kids into the world, and you are in a phase of that complete aloofness and detachment that witnessing states, dry especially one, can be accompanied. This will feel as life is going by and you are not part of it. For someone who prefers to or inclined to forsake human relationships like this, maybe this is the most welcome phase of their life. Or there could be this experience of seeing oneself in the world, or recognizing the world in oneself. All on the account of consciousness here illumines this, and whatever will be more expressively experienced. Because unity cannot just come overnight and take over. That dance and dynamic between subject and object, earlier maybe when we spoke about this, we could have also spoken how in the process of being, swelling within itself under the propensity of its plentitude and spilling out of its own plentitude by virtue of that frequency, virtue of that movement we call prana, the subjectification of that gives rise to mind. Objectification of that gives rise to matter. But being remains the link in between, link between subject and object. Mind is forever subject. And everything that we experience as world of forms, that what's now called matter, is forever an object of our experience. The link in between is always innocent. It doesn't belong to you or me. It is not colored, neither by mind nor by ego. That's what we call innocence of perception. Perception is always innocent. Seeing is innocent. Hearing is innocent. Tasting is innocent. Every single sense perception is innocent. But how it is being experienced in terms of interpretation makes it into something else. makes it into whatever that is being experienced by you or me or anyone. So this subject-object dynamic is there to play itself and could be spoken of as the final frontier. And in that softening phase, the softening edges between the subject and the object, you and the boundaries between you and the world, is a beautiful process. You should not see this as being weakened by that process, but rather a necessary phase of melting or undergoing some alchemical meltdown into something which is qualitatively higher in every respect. And that qualitatively higher may result itself in a diamantine qualities. Doesn't have to be. It can be in transparent qualities, right? Like this mythical yogi, right? Mythical yogis. One, you strike him with any weapon and the weapon goes through him. And you hit him with the arrow flies through him because there's nothing that he is attached to or identified with, so there's nothing other than space. It's like fighting space. Or an adamantine one. You strike him with any weapon and that weapon is destroyed because she is impenetrable. Whether these qualities will rise, we don't know how it will play itself out. But that phase of softening is not to be lamented about or carved in, let alone regretting that this somehow at the expense of world will take advantage of you. You are the world. Nobody can take advantage of you. Just to give maybe now more personal example of my own upbringing. My mother had these qualities that she was very, very soft person as a woman, soft in terms of her demeanors, very, very feminine and very gentle. Yet when it came to the matters that matter, she will become like a warrior. She'll become like this, I don't know, she'll stand on all her, and defend that what needs to be defended. It was always bewildering me to observe that, especially later on. As a meditator, my mother had these qualities simultaneously combined and coexisting there. Very, very gentle, water-like. And yet, when it comes to the matters of principles, when it comes to the matters of integrity, she will stand the ground there and no one will be able to pass if this is something which in her understanding that matters, that mattered, because she is no longer here. So this is what I want to reflect to you. Be courageous and not at all be somehow under the impression that this is going to play out itself in such a way that the world is going to run you over. None of that will happen. In that softness there is also incredible strength, because that softness of which you speak, sensitivity, fragility and softness, as you put it together here, you feel, as you said, I feel a growing sensitivity, in these last 2 years of practice. All this is accompanied by rising of the intuition. That's what sensitivity leads to. Being able to make decisions which are coming from a place of tapping into it, rather than simply logically trying to figure it out. So that fragility and softness has another side to it, which can be seen as strength, because it can also go around. It's not encountering hardness, because hardness can be harmed by hardness. So see this in that more of a, from that Taoistic perspective. Nothing in itself is good or bad. No quality in itself is a quality which is deprived of these opposites. So whatever you feel here as something which threatens you to lose your stand has its opposite, which is accompanied by that, perhaps what you have not yet tapped into, that inner strength, hidden strength. And see how you can go through this phase, through this process, with greater confidence. Greater confidence in absence of fear, because there is nothing to be afraid of.